Headed down the shore? Skip the hassle. Let Beach Caddy handle the heavy lifting. Bellhop and beach cart rentals are available in Ocean City, Sea Isle, Avalon, Stone Harbor, and Wildwood. Use the promo code Jimbo for 10% off bellhop and cart rentals. Beach Caddy takes the stress out of your Jersey Shore trip. Go to beachcaddy.app. Use the promo code Jimbo for 10% off your move-in, move-out bellhop service and beach cart rentals. Best beach carts at the Jersey Shore. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for June 30th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Monday edition of the podcast, back home from the home office. Lots of golf this weekend. It was hot, but a good time was had. And again, like I said last Monday, be a shark today. You don't see sharks worrying about it being Monday. Just go out there looking mean, looking to eat things. So go out there and be a shark on this Monday. And since it is Monday, like we do every Monday, it's time to rewind the weekend to see what we missed. The Rewind the Weekend is brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery. All right, inconsistency is the name of the game for the Phils this weekend. Took 2 out of 3 from the Braves. Exploded after not scoring any runs against the Astros. Exploded for a 13-0 win on Friday. Everybody seemed like they got into it. But as I've been saying, that 13-0 hitting home runs, that's this team. The team that played against the Astros, that's also this team. It's just, it's bizarre. The big story before this game was Max Kepler came out and said he is not happy with his playing time. Thought he was promised apparently that he was going to be the everyday left fielder. Hasn't been playing against lefties pretty much since April. Not happy with the platoon situation. And truthfully, I get that as a player you need the consistent reps and everything like that. But Kepler's only hitting 209, so I'm not really sure what to make of that. And again, if any of the outfielders were tearing it up, I could see, but I don't know. We'll see. That's one of those under the radar things. This team hasn't had a ton of drama like this, so it's worth monitoring to see what happens, especially with Bryce coming back possibly this week, as well as the trade deadline looming, whether or not they're going to make a move for another outfielder, which likely will cut into more Kepler's time. It seems right now it's just a huge miss from Dave Dombrowski, but we'll see. And then Saturday, pitcher's duel, had it, and then Romano gave up the grand slam, pretty much broke it open, and that was it. Phillies only managed 4 hits on Saturday night. Luzardo didn't pitch terribly, wasn't his sharpest, but you can't win any game if you're only having 4 hits. So to me, the first 2 nights of this series were a microcosm of this Philly season. 13 runs one night, 1 run on 4 hits the next. And then that brings us to yesterday. Good, solid win. It was Spencer Strider versus Ranger Suarez. Ranger outdueled him. They did just enough offensively. Otto Kemp knocked in a run and then scored the go-ahead run on a sac fly. He's been doing pretty well, I think, since being called up. A little bit of a slow start, but has really been turning it on now that he's getting used. With Bryce coming back, though, likely will cut into his playing time, which stinks. But they got, like I said, they gave them a little bit of a spark. I mentioned Harper. He should be back this week. Did batting practice all weekend. As of this morning, it seemed like it was still a little stiff, but not enough to take him out. He could come back as early as tonight. They're back home against the Padres. Zach Wheeler on the mound tonight for the Phils. And I don't know whether this is a bullpen game or a guy that the Padres just called up, but he didn't have any numbers. So good opportunity here for the Phillies to come back home tonight and take 2 out of 3 from the Padres. Lots of talk over the weekend about Justin Crawford and bringing him up. And as much as I would like it, Brandon Marsh hasn't been hitting that bad in center. I don't know if you bring up Crawford for a platoon. If you bring him in, he needs to be every day playing, getting those reps. So we'll see what happens. Lots to go as we finish out June, head into the All-Star break. Trade deadline's coming up, and this is going to be a pivotal next couple weeks for the Phillies, seeing which way they or what they do at the trade deadline, who they call up, and Andrew Painter's on the horizon. So July is going to be a fun month for the Phillies, one way or the other, and I think we'll figure out what this team is and where they're going when that happens. All right, the Flyers. Pretty good draft, I would say. First round, they took Porter Martone, and he's a big forward. And I like it because Briere, I heard an interview with him, said he's not that far from coming up. Probably won't start the season in Philly. Possible that he comes up later in the season, but certainly a good piece for the future. And they got a big guy. And then they traded up in the first round, moved to number 12, took Jack Nesbitt. He's only 18. He is a center. Kind of a mixed review on him. Some pundits had him going much later than that. But I did listen to Al Morganti, who to me is the ultimate Philly hockey guy. And he said most likely the fact that they packaged up to take him means they got word that somebody was going to be taking him before them. So it means that that's who Briere wanted, and they got their guy. And again, I mentioned this before, and I haven't mentioned it in a while. I really trust Briere. I don't think it's the same old boys network with the Flyers. I mean, he went to Wharton, went through a GM program, worked as a scout. So it's not just Bobby Clark handing his buddies jobs. I think Briere knows what he's doing, and if he likes him, had wind that somebody was going to take him, and that was their guy, I'm glad that he was able to do it. And then they just went big again. That was the theme of this draft for the Flyers, specifically on day 2. Drafted a ton of big guys. Future is bright here. Free agency coming, so not sure what the Flyers are going to do with that. But overall, a solid draft for the Flyers. They had the assets. They were able to use them to trade up to get their guy. They got their big forward, who should be ready to contribute very soon. Telling you, I said it all through last season, and it wasn't necessarily, it didn't play out that way, but get on the Flyers bandwagon now. I think they're going to be good. And then some odds and ends from the Sixers. Yesterday was, or I guess today, was the deadline for a lot of the players to declare whether they're going to opt in or not. Andre Drummond opted in. Kelly Oubre opted in. Eric Gordon opted out. And then the Sixers, it's kind of surprising. I thought Lonnie Walker was going to be on this team, but they declined Lonnie Walker's team option. So now it turns to free agency, which starts tomorrow. Or I guess technically it starts tonight. But seeing what they do, the biggest name is Quentin Grimes, and he's a restricted free agent. He wants like $25 million. I don't know if the Sixers are going to give him $25 million, but we'll see what happens. If anybody gives him $25 million, I guess it's up to the Sixers on whether or not they want to match that. I think it might be a little steep, considering he was playing with a bunch of G League guys for most of the season when he went on his little tear there near the end. But we'll see how it plays out. And then, of course, Gershon Yabusele is the other big question mark. I would love to have him back. I know that San Antonio is rumored to be interested in him, teaming him back up with Wembanyama. Should be an interesting offseason. It's here. And again, it all comes down to Joe's knees, but I'm kind of in on this Sixers team, and I don't want to be. My judgment is telling me better of it, but I'm kind of digging it. We'll see. Like I said, I would love to have Yabusele back, have him have a full year training camp and all that with the Sixers. So buckle up. The off-season free agency period of both the NHL and the NBA are about to kick off, and it's going to be a fun one. All right, Union. The streak is over. A 13-game unbeaten streak overall, 11 in MLS. Ended last night with a 1-0 loss to Columbus. They were very shorthanded, guys doing their national duties with the Gold Cup. Injuries. Ty Barabo is still out with an injury. He is back from Israel, though, but shorthanded, and it was a nice little run. No harm, no foul. They're still at the top of the standings in the East. They look to bounce back, and hey, let's start another streak. But it was good to see Andre Blake back in goal yesterday as well. All right, this is what happened this past weekend in Philly sports history. On June 28th, it was groundbreaking for Citizens Bank Park back in 2001. Yes, they broke ground to start the stadium. And then 3 years later, first season of the stadium, 2004, Phillies beat the Expos 14-6. David Bell became the eighth Philly to hit for the cycle on this day, becoming also the first grandson-grandfather duo. His grandfather, Gus, did it back in 1951 that I could see there. I think there was only 3 sets of family members that have both hit for the cycle, and this was the only grandfather-grandson. Ironically enough, old Gus did that against the Phillies. So there is your Philly tie. And that's Rewind the Weekend, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Very busy weekend in Philly sports. Phillies Padres tonight, though. Zach Wheeler on the mound. All right, let's do some housekeeping like we always do. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott, and continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. If you want to see highlights, photos, clips, things like that on whatever we're talking about, that is also available on my social media, including Facebook and LinkedIn. Don't forget about the Discord channel. The first link in the description will take you there. And come over. Let's have some good Philly sports talk. And if you missed it on Friday, even though I was in Virginia, we spent Fridays with AI, and we did a fun little tournament of the Phillies all-time World Series team round robin with a double elimination at the end. The 2008 team just completely dominating both ends of the tournament and taking the crown. All right, on Friday, the trivia question, we talked about Ryan Howard being the DH in the NL Park for an away game that the Phillies played at Citizens Bank Park due to the G20 Summit in Toronto. And I asked you, who was the first Philly to be a designated hitter in a regular season game? And that was Darren Daulton back in 1997 up at Fenway Park. And then the bonus, I said, who was the first Philly to appear in a non-spring training game as a designated hitter? And that would be Greg Luzinski, who was the DH in Game 1 of the 1980 World Series. Back in the late, they really kind of changed the rules a couple times. At one point, it was all even number years. The World Series had DHs. Odd number years, they did not. Later in the 80s, they switched it to at the American League Park. And now everybody has a DH. But Darren Daulton, first Philly to be a designated hitter in a regular season game. Greg Gross, the first pinch hitter in a non-preseason game for the Phillies in the 80 World Series Game 1. This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, a growing community of diehard fans turning their sports passion into something special. Whether you're looking for unique shows, want to launch your own podcast but don't have the time, or need production services, the ClashingConferences.com has everything you need. Explore fan-driven content, become a member, or tap into their media services to level up your brand. That's ClashingConferences.com, where fans' voices get heard. All right, June 30th. And June 30th was a big day for our winter sports teams. Kind of mixed results depending on how you want to look at it. But first, let's go back to 1992. And on this day in 1992, an arbitrator ruled in favor of the Flyers in the Eric Lindros case. The backstory of this was the Nordiques agreed to trade the Flyers and then trade Lindros to the Flyers, had second thoughts about it. And while the Flyers were getting in contact with Eric Lindros' agent to make sure that he would come to the Flyers, because that was the contingency plan for this trade. As long as Lindros, because he had a list of teams he wanted to go to, if Philly was one of the teams that he would accept, the trade was final. The Nordiques started to have second thoughts and then agreed to another trade with the Rangers that would send him to New York. Flyers were like, no. You gave us your word. We were doing our homework and our due diligence like you asked us to. You cannot go back on this deal now. Went to arbitration, and when the dust settled, the Flyers got Eric Lindros for Steve Duquesne, Peter Forsberg, Ron Hextall, Kerry Huffman, Mike Ricci, Chris Simon, 2 first-round picks, and $15 million. Lindros would go on to become a star before the concussions came in and started to cut his career short. Did lead the Flyers to the 97 Stanley Cup. He won a Hart Trophy. He is in the Hall of Fame. His number 88 is retired. But one of the biggest what-ifs in Flyers history, because Peter Forsberg would go on to have a pretty damn good career himself, albeit a lot of the success of the Nordiques, and then once they moved to Colorado, was due in large part to the compensation they got for Eric Lindros. But on this day, Eric Lindros officially became a member of the Philadelphia Flyers when an arbitrator said the Flyers trade, which was the official trade, there was no need for the Nordiques to go to the Rangers, and the rest, as they say, is history. 1 year later, the Sixers did not fare as well. They drafted number 2 overall and took Shawn Bradley out of BYU. If you remember Shawn, he was 7'6", but hadn't played basketball in 2 years because he was on a mission out in Australia. Didn't even pick up a basketball, if I remember the way things were reported. He was able to go back to BYU after his mission, decided to forego it and go straight to the NBA. And now he wasn't terrible as a player. Carved out a solid 12-year career in the NBA. However, when a team took you number 2 overall, and at this point, we had suffered through Clarence Weatherspoon. At this point, we had suffered through all of the other, from 1986 on. We've talked a lot about it the past couple weeks. Sixers fans were looking for a difference maker when you had guys like Shaq and Chris Webber getting drafted and Alonzo Mourning. And here we are with Shawn Bradley. Not what the Sixers wanted, not what they needed, not what they were looking for. Did average almost 10 points a game, 7.5 rebounds, over 3 blocks in his 2.5 seasons with the Sixers. But growing tired of it and looking to get back onto their winning ways, the Sixers did trade him to the Nets in the trade that brought Derek Coleman back to Philly. Or I guess it wouldn't have been back to Philly. I guess this was Derek Coleman came the first time. But in that draft, they passed on Penny Hardaway, Jamal Mashburn, Allen Houston. All 3 of those guys would have been great pickups for the Sixers. But we got stuck with Shawn Bradley, who, by the way, wore number 76 because he was 7'6". Again, he was solid, not number 2 pick in the draft worthy. Played for 12 years with the Nets, Dallas, and I think there was another team in there as well. Unfortunately for Shawn, and we do wish him well, suffered a spinal cord injury in 2021 and is unfortunately paralyzed from his shoulders down. But Shawn Bradley, drafted number 2 overall on this day in 1993. Not the best pick for the Sixers. Not at all. All right. A little bit of Phillies trivia today. And this one might sound odd, but have to get it out. On this day in 1967, which Phillies position player came into the game to pitch in a 12-3 blowout and checked off pitcher as a position he played, becoming the only Philly in team history to play all 9 positions in a game at some point for the Phillies? So what Phillies player is the only one in team history to play all 9 positions at some point during their Phillies career? Hit me up on the Discord, the Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531. This guy came in to pitch. He had caught, played all the outfield, all the infield positions, and once he pitched, officially became the only Philly to play all 9 positions for them in his career. Get that answer in. If you know anything about my mom, it is her favorite player. There's your hint. All right, and then finally today, our greatest individual season in Philly sports history rolls on. On Friday, we had a Sixers region matchup, and it was Wilt Chamberlain from 66-67 pulling the upset over the number 4 seed AI 2000-2001 with 75% of the vote. I guess a lot of people look at winning a championship better than the AI magic and fun that we had. So thank you for everyone who participated in it. We now have 2 Wilts in the Sixers region semifinals. Will it be a clean sweep? Stay tuned throughout July to find out. And then today we have an Eagles region matchup, and it's a battle of newcomers, and we have the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, Saquon Barkley from just last season, 2,005 rushing yards, set the Eagles record, added 13 touchdowns, added 2 more receiving touchdowns, set an NFL record for combined rushing yards throughout the playoffs and Super Bowl, had 11 100-yard rushing games, 7 runs over 60 yards or more, was a Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro, Offensive Rookie of the Year, or Offensive Player of the Year, and was truly the difference maker on this team throughout the season and into the playoffs and the Super Bowl run. And obviously, we brought home the Lombardi Trophy. He's going up against the number 8 seed, Terrell Owens from 2004. In 14 games, Terrell had 77 catches, 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, made the Pro Bowl, was also first-team All-Pro before the injury. The ridiculous horse collar tackle by Roy Williams put him out for the rest of the regular season and the postseason, but did come back in the Super Bowl, caught 9 balls for 122 yards, and certainly was the difference maker, as he was a large piece and a large reason that team was finally able to overcome their NFC Championship demons. Now it's your turn. Whose season was better? Was it Saquon Barkley last year, Terrell Owens in 2004? Get your vote in. Discord, Back to the Future voice and text line, any social media, send some smoke signals, whatever you got to do, carrier pigeon, whatever you got to do, get that vote in. And I want to take a minute to shout out our partner, Lotwin. Go to lotwin.com, get your 3D custom hype chains. These things are good for youth sports, bachelor parties, fantasy football. Just renewed my fantasy football league last week, so it's about to be that season. Work with Lotwin to get a winner and a loser hype chain to wear at your parties. Whatever punishment you decide. So go to lotwin.com. Use the promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off of your order. All right, on this day, back in 1993, Sixers drafted Shawn Bradley, number 2 overall. Didn't work out. And in 1992, a year earlier, an arbitrator ruled that Eric Lindros's trade to the Flyers was, in fact, legitimate. Flyers gave up a ton for him, but it certainly did work out for them in the end. Don't forget our trivia question. Which Phillies player is the only one to play all 9 positions in games for the Phillies throughout their career? We reround the weekend with Philly Go today. We'll have more on the Phillies Padres. Remember, go out there and be a Shark. Hopefully Daryl Morey, Elton Brand, Jameer Nelson, they're up. They're out there being Sharks right now as the Sixers look to go into free agency and add some pieces to this team. This has been This Day in Philly sports history for June 30th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Monday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.